The Short Game is listener supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame. Welcome back to The Short Game, a show about short video games that respect your time. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined this week by one rock climbing co-host,
Lauren Ash, who did not get a merit badge in rock climbing at camp because I fell off the wall too many times.
No. Well, at least you tried. I feel like I just avoided the whole thing.
I did try. You had to get to the top in the allocated time, and I spent the whole time on the wall.
Yeah, well, I mean, that certainly has to be better than what some people did.
Yes, and that is emblematic of my performance in this game as well.
Just stayed stuck to the wall. Yeah, kind of same. But yeah, this week, Laura and I will be talking about Jusant, a game by Don't Nod, the French developers who also released short game favorite.
Life is Strange. But if you're looking for time traveling lesbians, this is not that game. This is rock climbing and desert.
Yeah, quite the opposite of time traveling lesbians. But yeah, I mean, Life is Strange is kind of an all timer, I think, for the short game. We never did Life is Strange 2. I think it's been just sort of kicked down the road over and over and over. And at this point, it seems hard to prioritize. But I absolutely loved the first Life is Strange. We did sort of a book club, chapter by chapter.
And
shows
who doesn't like sitting on a bed listening to Jose Gonzalez? Am I right?
That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. And so, pretty hyped about this game. Don't Nod has released a bunch of other things that we haven't really, at least I personally haven't spent much time with. But this one came out in October of 2023. We tried to get into it before the end of the year. It did show up on some people's Game of the Year lists. We couldn't quite make it fit, but we're happy to get a chance to talk about it today. It's just Laura and I this week. The Kelly brothers have entered into their yearly hibernation.
They're in bear mode.
Yeah, Reagan has packed himself into a cave full of CRTs, and we'll see them, probably on the next episode.
And Shane is all snuggled up in a den of magic cards.
Yes, their collective hobbies help them sleep. Yeah, so we did look up the pronunciation, Jusant. That is the French way to say it, or at least that's our best attempt at it.
And this is a game that starts off with a definition on the screen, which I don't think I've seen in a hot second. For those who have not played yet, Jusant is the ebb or the low tide. It's the receding water shows up before you get started. What do you think about a definition at the start of a game, Nate?
Well, I mean, I always love it's the trope, right? Of like Webster's dictionary defines like any speech starting with a definition, always cracks me up. And I kind of had that feeling in this game too, where it's like, it makes me laugh. I kind of get why they did it. This game is all about mood and vibe and tone setting and whatnot. And so they're just throwing it right up there at the front. If you don't know what this word means, this is what it means. Get comfortable.
We didn't make it up. It's a real word.
It's a real word. Yeah. And this game is available on most things. It's on PlayStation and Xbox and Steam. I played it on Steam Deck through Xbox Game Pass cloud streaming, which was my first time doing this. And for the most part, it was fine, except for that you have to like log in to the cloud streaming thing every time, and you have to like wait in a line for your turn to get in. I never dealt with any of this. It's not a long wait, but it was surprising. And then if you set down your Steam Deck like I am prone to do and walk away from it, you get booted from the game. And so if you didn't get to a save point, you kind of have to do it again, which the save points happen pretty frequently in this game, so it's not a big deal. But overall, I was pretty happy with the experience, being able to play a Microsoft game on my Steam Deck, but still a few things I had to learn. But the Steam Deck I thought was really good for this game, although I think probably the ideal is something with a big screen that you can
Yeah.
see everything beautifully. How
I
did you
played
play it?
on the PlayStation on my projector.
Oh,
I
hell yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. It's the perfect way, like, any of these games that are about the vibes and the
Yeah.
beauty of the world, like, I played Stray on the projector, I played,
Yeah.
the sailing game, which I'm blanking on the name of on the projector. It's like, that kinda stuff, very good for it.
Like Lone Far
Mhm.
Sales
Farlone
or
Sales, yeah.
Far Lone Sales. Yeah, I actually thought a lot about that game while playing this game. We're gonna talk about the world and the environment a little bit later, but, like,
Yeah.
I definitely felt like this game I could have run into the little person from
On the
far
boat,
in
yeah. You
on
coulda
the
looked down
boat
the tower, and that little boat
and
could have
see
been
the
going on
little
the
yeah. I was also thinking, like, and on this show, we have a long history of covering games about little guys who get around, and this
Mhm.
was very much a little guy who gets around type of game.
Absolutely. Little they, non
Yeah, little
little
person.
non-gendered
Is it
person,
even a person? Like, yeah,
probably,
probably.
there's definitely mystical elements. I will say before we get off the what to play this on, uh, play this with a controller for the love of everything that's
Yes.
holy. I can't imagine doing this on a keyboard. You would get pretzeled instantly.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
also wouldn't
absolutely.
feel right.
No, that's part of the whole thing with this game is kind of how you play it. So
Mhm. It's
let's
all
get
about the
into it.
mechanics, so yeah.
Yeah. So this game is centered around climbing, rock climbing, like your standard, what you think of, you've got your pitons and your repellent ropes and whatnot, and you're actually like scaling walls, scaling mountains, scaling anything and everything that you can grab a hold of. It made me think a lot like climbing has become such a major part of video games
Mhm.
for a while now. I mean, at least for me, when I think about climbing in games, even though I didn't actually play it, it's a huge hole in my sort of gaming history. But Shadow of the Colossus,
Mm,
it has so much of that, like, little person climbing a giant thing, right?
yeah.
And it's sort of like the scale of it being part of the game. And then Assassin's Creeds, like your Spider-Mans, your Zelda now climbing is something that you do a significant amount of time on. It's in everything. Usually it's like, oh, I just stick. I'm
Yeah, this
Spider-Man
one's
or I'm
like usually you just press up and like, "Ooh, you're climbing." This one is
yeah.
literally like looking where you're going, right hand, left hand, at least
Yeah.
you don't have to do the feet, but like you
Yeah.
are consciously making the decision to reach and grab and to
Yeah.
jump and to place, but like it makes it incredibly mechanical and very physical. You
Yeah.
do have to alternate the right and left triggers and or the right
Yeah.
and left bumpers if you're trying to let go of the rope or go up and down. There's a lot of physicality to the motion of it. I
Yeah.
think the tutorial is pretty good considering arguably it's kind of complicated.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that feels like on the outside looking in, it feels complicated because yeah, like
It makes
play
sense on the controller.
once you're playing it, you do kind of get into like this is I think one of the better successes of the game is that like for all of that, it is literally your left hand is controlled
Mhm.
by the left bumper or left trigger, and your right
Yeah.
hand is controlled by your right trigger. And so you're like, and your the left joystick controls the hand, and the right joystick controls the hand, and so you're
The
literally like,
camera, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
you're literally holding like I need to hold on to this wall with my right hand, so I'm going to hold down the right trigger, and I'm going to use the left stick to move the left hand
Up,
over
yeah.
up and over because I can see a little ledge. I'm gonna press in the left trigger to grab hold and depress the right trigger to let go of the right hand. And this all sounds,
Sounds hokey
complicated.
pokey, but it makes
Yeah,
complete sense on the
it actually
controller.
works. It really
Yeah.
does work. And you kind of get into a flow state after a little while. Like I I stopped really having to think about it. And I think part of that is that they're also just very forgiving.
Mhm.
When you're really like you get to points, a lot of this is really intricate, minute decision making and climbing and whatnot. But there's also just like here's a massive wall and I'm just going to climb right up and it doesn't really require any sort of like attention to detail.
It's a ladder. Up I
Yeah,
go.
yeah, and you can just kinda, like, hold up with the left stick and just sort of alternate your right and left trigger, and you'll just scurry right up the thing. So you don't like it's only when it's really specific do you really have to get like detailed with it. Otherwise, it goes pretty quickly. And I actually started to find it kind of enjoyable, this sort of just like back and forth, left and right, and climbing up.
It
And
feels like the dream of a VR, like, where you would actually be
yeah,
reaching your right and left. Like, this is
yeah,
as close as you can through a controller of, like, physically right and left alternating. Like, it does feel like they spent a lot of time on the mappings.
yeah,
Um, Later on, when you get a couple extra things added on top of it, you have to use like the D-pad, and you're like, those almost always I was like, "Oh, I'm consciously using a completely different thing outside of rock
yeah.
climbing because it's not on those maps." I found that actually really nice because it was like, "Oh, I'm using a special ability. I, the rock climber, have to like do something that's
Think
not my
about
norm."
it.
And
Yeah,
that felt good. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I and like it had to be good, right? Or this
Yeah.
game would have
Been
fallen flat.
miserable.
Yeah, because it is like the whole game is you're this little person and you are scaling a massive, massive construct and or like what would you say, like side of a plateau, right? And
Mhm.
you're going like in and out, and it's a formerly inhabited part of the world, and so but seems to be crumbling, so
Covered
you're
in boats.
yeah, covered in boats, up and down, boats everywhere, boats
Mhm.
all the way down. And yeah, you're navigating the world this way. You do get things like you have to place your climbing equipment. You might rappel down and swing around for a little while, which is fun. And you're placing additional pitons so you can like scale left to right across walls where there are no handholds, or you might actually be like this little person has a quite the shot with their rope. They can basically like grappling hook onto things,
So
very,
far.
yeah, super dead eye shot, and you're like swinging across massive chasms and grabbing onto stuff and climbing. It's that's the whole game is climbing and exploring.
Yeah, and I watched a lot of, the sport climbing in the Tokyo Olympics because it was the premiere of it. Controversial because, people who are rock climbers are like, "Those are 3 different events that are specialties, and no
Mm,
one is good at all 3, and you've combined them." Um, so whoopsie on the
that's
Olympics, apparently
yeah,
undermining their
that's
own
an
sport, but it's still really fun to watch, and I think this is closest to what's the lead event, which is that you see a wall you've never seen, and you have 6 minutes to get as high as you can. You've never
nice.
seen it before, and you just walk in, like, essentially with a blindfold on, and then they take it off and you run up the wall. Like,
Yeah,
that's the experience of Descent, except I am not a Olympic level rock climber, and it took
right.
me a lot of, like, climbing up, getting to a dead end, and, like, going down and finding another route. Like, it's I've seen people describe this as a puzzle platformer.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel like one because 'cause you're not, jumping, but the
right.
traversal, like, the puzzle of how do I get around this obstacle? How do I combine to get at the root. I mean, the root is up,
Yeah,
basically.
I
It's pretty
did.
linear.
There were a few things that like I struggled with this game, but I really don't think it's the game's fault. Although it'd be interesting to hear if you struggled with
Mhm.
it as well. Like just personally, I've talked about this on the show a fair amount of times, but I'm blind in like 900 different ways, and so any sort of 3D space where you have to identify like oh, the little gradient on a ledge is one that can be climbed on versus one that can't be, I struggle with that. So I found myself all the time in this game having no clue exactly where to go and struggling to tell the difference between is there a minor puzzle here, or if I just not found the path to go yet. So I was digging myself into all sorts of stupid little corners of this mountain and getting stuck in the geography and stuff like that all the time. But then I would look up like a like a video of someone playing it, and they're always like, oh, here's where you go, da 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 da. And then like people are saying this game, it only takes them an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to play, and I played for far longer than that. And so like but again, I don't know that that was the game's fault. It's more just like me. But I did kind of a disclosure on this, I did struggle a little bit on this game because there are also these puzzles that I think Puzzle is doing a lot of work there. It's rarely like, it's not like
It
Zelda
is, how do
puzzles.
I get from here to there is the
Yeah.
puzzle. And it is, what buttons, what do I press, what do I activate in the world? Is it a jumping? Is it a swinging?
Yeah.
Is it a going down and going back up again? Like it is
Do I
entirely
need
a, it's a puzzle like Indiana Jones going through a temple is a puzzle. Like,
Yeah.
can I get across this thing?
Yeah, you're not like, "Oh, I found a key over
There's
here,"
none of that
or like, "I have to
nonsense.
spin these dials to line everything up," and, like, you have to read the room the exact it's nothing like that. It is usually like, yeah, like Laura said, like, I have
I
this set of
like
equipment.
activated a mural on the wall, and then I was just like, "What do I do now?" And the answer was leave. Like, there's nothing to do with it.
There is a lot of that, and I wanna talk about that when we get to the story stuff, 'cause I'm
But
really
I'm
torn on
just, don't
but
put that expectation on this game.
yeah. Yeah, like, "Oh, I activated the ziggurat."
No.
Okay, cool. That was just that was just a cool thing I did. It had nothing to do with any progress. It is one of those games where like if you most of the time can see where you need to go. And if you've exhausted your like climbing tech and you still
Mhm.
can't get over there, there's something probably very simple in the nearby environment that you just like flip a switch and something activates in it, and now you can go that way, or you get some of these abilities that interact with the world, and it's something like that. Like
Or look
none of
up,
this.
and there was a thing you didn't see. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
These
Like
are observation puzzles,
yeah,
almost.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
did
I
you
think
notice the thing?
they did this all just like I was sitting here thinking like climbing is such a thing in games, and it's normally there's no resistance in climbing
Mhm.
except for in like Breath of the Wild when it's raining or something. But that is just frustrating and annoying. Like most games, you're just like, yeah, you just climb indefinitely, whatever. Assassin's Creed, etc. This game, it's actually like it's an effort, and traversing this can be an effort. And I think it's all to serve to give you something to do while you're just taking in the world, because that's
Yeah.
really what this game is about. Like I don't
There's
know.
no voiceover, there's
There's
music, there's
there's
sound
kind of a
effects.
there's an environment, and there's environmental storytelling, but like for the most part you're
It's you in
playing
your head.
this. Yeah, yeah, and you're playing this to like take it all in.
Yeah.
Because it is, I think it arguably the best part of this game, though I did enjoy the climbing, is just the intricacy of this world and the like extreme distance that you ultimately do traverse while playing it. It's
Mhm.
broken into 6 chapters. It's 6 different biomes. They're all they have some similarities. It's not like you're going from like tropical forest to desert or something like that. It's not like a journey even,
Mhm.
but like it is 6 different biomes, 6 different sort of vibes, and you're traveling through them, and a lot of it is just like what's going on here, why am I all alone in this world. There's a lot of content around that tries to kind of give you some of that background, but mostly it's just really pretty looking, and that's what I was
Yeah.
saying. Like I think playing it on a giant screen like you did is probably the ideal way.
I will quibble with a lot of stuff to look at, because I think one of the things, maybe it's because I was so focused on the climbing and the
Yeah.
traversal aspects, but I think around the second chapter I got stuck on something. I quit for the night, opened it up the next day and didn't remember where I was. And so I looked at a
Mhm.
walkthrough to be like, what did I do before this? And I was looking through it. I was like, oh, I missed a lot of things, like
Yeah.
letters and cards. I was like, I thought I was doing pretty well at, like, I review games for a podcast. I know to
look
get to a
around.
platform and run around until you
Yeah.
see things that light up and then go look at all the things, but maybe there's a delay. Maybe I didn't wander as much as I thought I did, but I did miss a lot of the hidden things. I think I got most letters, but like not all
Yeah.
of them. I there when I was playing, I was thinking, "Oh, this is lighter on story content than I was expecting." And I think some of it was probably me not 100% grabbing
Mhm.
it, but I do think it is a lighter touch than I expected from Don't Nod.
Yeah, there is a lot of written word in this game
Mhm.
overall. I assume I didn't find a ton of it because I was the same way. And there's lots of little nooks and crannies, and while I don't think you can really get like, I think the game sort of gates you off from ever going like too far backwards or anything like that, since you are just always going up. So if you ever
Mhm.
find yourself going down, unless you're very certain and it's very
Going
obvious that's
down to go across,
to
yes.
go across to go back up. But if you're ever going down, you're probably going back the wrong way. So like
Yeah.
it was generally easy to tell. Like I know I'm not in the wrong place. I know like I generally know I need to go up. But yeah, there's lots of little like little houses and little caves and little things, and they have yeah, lots of like letters from the world, the seemingly relatively recent world, although you can't I don't know, it's hard to tell
Mhm.
exactly. And then like a nice little I kind of enjoy this, like it's a little, I don't even know if you'd call it achievement, it's almost more like place marking, but there's the little stacks of stones that you see people
The
do,
cairns.
the
Yeah.
cairns, yeah, 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 and you come up and you put one more stone on it,
I did find
and
those moving. Yeah.
yeah, well, they're usually in very beautiful spots,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of a moment to like, take in the world and sort of like check mark you've been here, and they're usually just a little off the path, something, some sort of ridge, something overlooking something, that gives you a chance to sort of slow down for a second. Um, but yeah, I'm certain I missed a ton. I mean, I still don't fully like, I get the broader story, but, like, I'm sure there's so much that, like, I didn't even find or recognize. I'm typically pretty bad at that, and then, yeah, we the sort of the, double-edged sword of doing games all the time for a podcast is, one, like, yeah, I know the rhythm of games. I know, like, this is this type of game. I should, like, really take it in, but also it's like, we're recording in a couple days, and I wanna get as far into this game as possible, and I'm stumbling my way through it, so I need to, like, really focus and get as high up as I possibly
Yeah.
can.
I was nervous as I was playing that because the story had been it the story is told through environment.
Mhm.
It's not a spoiler to say that the land used to have water in it, now it doesn't. And so
Yes.
the changes that have happened to this tower because, people leaving, people moving on, you know, it's almost all through objects and vistas and like it's almost
Yeah.
all environmental storytelling.
Like
Um,
letters to people. It's like some people seem to be going up the mountain, and some people are going down to try to
yeah,
solve their problem. So you'll get
elsewhere, yeah.
letters. It'll be like, I'm going with this group. They're letting me go with them as they go down, and they're like, "We'll miss you. We're going up." I'm super
Mhm.
simplifying it, but it's a lot of that.
But that's what it feels like, and but, like, it's not as if you get the next diary entry in your like,
Right.
it's not as if it's an incredibly linear story or, um, a you're not finding out about, like, secret affairs or anything scandalous. It's like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just it's very much it's light. It's not, I keep saying light, but I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
like, we've been in games where, like, walking sim games where every object you pick up, you can look on the back and read it and, like,
It's a it's a
that's
fight.
the whole
There's
game. That's not
Yeah,
this
yeah.
game.
Well, and what really actually stood out to me too about the all the written language in it is that it's written in a very modern tongue, like a
Mhm.
modern, like one of the letters literally says "sorry, not sorry" in it,
Yeah, it does.
and all of it reads that way. But this world is this like, a lot of games are kind of doing this now. Like Cocoon, it was kind of similar. It's like very mechanical and like but broken down and a little mystical, and like there are some magical elements to it. So I kind of expected the language to be a little more I don't know, eloquent, y-
Elevated, heightened.
elevated,
Yes.
heightened, but it's not. It's very much like, hey, I'm going south. Sorry, not sorry. I'll miss you, bud. Like
Bye.
bye. Yeah, yeah. It really stood out to me, and I imagine that's intentional. But I was very surprised by it.
Yeah, it is those are part of the game, but I think you probably like there's nothing stopping you from just climbing the mountain and reading none of those. They're
I don't
not
think you.
on the main
I don't.
path.
I don't think you have to. Yeah, there's a
No.
couple items that you interact with that.
Yes, the to go to the next chapter. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd have to at least check in on some things. There is a few sort of magical elements. There's some conch shells that you're listening to or blowing into. We haven't even mentioned yet. You've got a little buddy with you.
Mhm. Little
How would you
blorb.
just? Yeah. How would you describe this little friend?
I it's not a spoiler because they at the very beginning cutscene, you show your little box and you don't see what's in it, but you just see like little like blue
Yeah.
what we find out is water, but like little blue ears and a little there's a
Yeah.
like little
Yeah.
like little gurgling sounds. Eventually after the first chapter, I think the little blurb comes out of the pouch you've been carrying in and it's rests on your shoulder and your head. It
Hmm.
looks kind of like a Pokemon,
Yeah. It's like
watery
a
Pokemon, a little
It's like
orb
a
whale.
Ditto, but
Yeah.
but blue. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's your little friend,
It's
it's
your
along for
ballast.
it's your ballast, yeah. And it has a couple things. One, it like makes son of a sort of a call that will interact with the world, um, you know, causing plants to come to life and things like that. That are some of those sort of traversal puzzles we talked about before. Um, but it also has,
Correction. Correction before
yeah,
we get further. Ballast, the things I was referring to as ears were actually the eyes. The eyes are the things that kind of
there
protrude
you go.
up.
Okay.
Yes. Just needed
Um,
before someone was like, "No, those are not ears. That's his
well,
eyes."
I could see it in your eyes as you were like sort of frantically like I think maybe looking up a picture or something.
I was like, "I called it ears. Those are not ears." And then I was
Yeah,
like, "Yep, they were not
it's
ears."
their
Apologies
eyes.
for interrupting you to be like,
That's okay. If
I had to
anything, it's
actually
important.
myself.
This podcast must be deadly accurate at all times. So I'm glad that you.
100%.
Uh-huh.
The little ditto dude,
Yeah.
eyes
Like a
on
little
top of his head.
frog, kinda. I don't know.
Yeah, a little
It's a
froggish.
little frog
Blue.
looking guy. Yeah, a little blue frog guy. And it also, you can press this button. You press right on the D pad, and and it gets on your head, and is supposed to give you direction on where to go next.
Mm.
Which
Yeah, not
personally,
as helpful as the game thought it was going to be.
yeah, this is the
The
one thing where
game
I like, did anyone actually try this feature? Because I am its target market.
yeah.
I'm stumbling over this whole game. When I found there was a button that points me in the direction to go, I'm like,
I was like, "This is
hell yes.
Cocoon finding out that
Yes.
light thinger."
Yes, this is exactly what I want in this game. I don't want to struggle through this game. I want to
Mhm.
just take it all in, and I just want to, enjoy it. And it doesn't work like
No.
at all. Like it
2
actually sent me
floating blue circles appear in the middle
yeah.
of nowhere on a wall.
I spent like 15 minutes trying to. It was pointing me. It's just, yeah, it does these floating circles, and it seems to indicate like that's the direction that you need to go. And what I think it's doing is it is highlighting like there over that way is where you need to go, but it does nothing to sort of give you guidance about how to get to that direction.
Like,
So
you'll
there
be
was.
in a room, and it will suddenly place the objective in a circle on the ceiling,
Mhm.
And you're like, cool.
I got to go up there.
I got to go up. I'm aware.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, there's a staircase like 3 rooms over, and you have to go up that staircase to get up to where that circle was. Or like in the one that really messed me up is there was this wall. A part of this whole game is climbing walls, and the circle was right above the wall. So I'm like, oh, I got to jump that wall. I got to climb up the wall and get over it. And I spent so long, like, because there were little nubs too, like on the wall. And I'm like, oh, thanks, little circle. It worked. And I spent so long trying to get up this wall, like trying to jump. Then I said, like, oh, I'm missing something. There must be like a trigger no, it was completely wrong. It's just on the other side of that wall is ultimately where you need to go. But I had to go all the way down and around this entire other thing. And it did the exact opposite of what it was trying
I'm like,
to
why was
accomplish.
this not just a compass? Because that's
Yeah.
effectively what it was doing. It was telling
Yeah.
me, go as the crow flies here,
Yeah.
but not helpful at all.
Yeah.
Much as
And
I
not
love
clear.
putting that dude on my
Yeah.
head and
Oh, it looks
singing,
great.
like,
Yeah.
looks
He is singing.
great.
Yeah. It's
Ollie's
singing.
gave him a little cuddle after.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I love the idea of the feature. It's just like it was so unclear because even when I figured out like, oh, it's telling me this is the general direction that I need to end up in, like it still would be sort of misleading because of how out of that path you have to go in order to get to where it's like I know I need to go up. I know I need to go over there. I came from over here.
mhm.
I'm on a ledge. I can only go over that way. It's not like give me a little bit more. So I ended up just stop using that button because it set me back more than it pushed me forward. And I don't know, maybe you and I both just missed something about this, but I don't think we did. If anybody played this game and listened and figured out how to use the one of the only other buttons that you really have outside of
Yeah.
your climbing gear, and it's such a dedicated purpose. I was pretty
I'd be
surprised.
wanting to echo and I would hit it accidentally and I'd be like, "Cool, thanks, floating
Yeah.
circle." Like, I was never happy to see the floating circle.
Yeah.
Um, it never seemed to help me.
Yeah.
Um,
No. So I guess I'm glad that the game was trying to do something like this, but like I don't know. I just can't believe it was so unsuccessful. So if you haven't
yeah,
played this
I
game
would
but you've
rather
made it
have
this
them
far,
turned
don't
it
bother.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just don't even have it. Don't make me think I'm gonna get help from you and it end up hurting me more than helping. It's like a
Yeah,
trick.
and not a fan of that. I think I would rather have had a light or something shine on your next thing, or like nothing happens in that room, so you know you need to leave. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of
Or
this
like
was not
have
it.
my little friend sort of point in
Hmm.
the direction that my player character actually needs to go. Not what the end result is, but like, the
It
game
felt like
certainly could.
navigating an airport of like
Yeah.
they're like, over here somewhere's your gate, and then like 20 minutes they're like, wait, the gate was 30 minutes away. What are you talking about? Like that's what that felt like.
Dude, when I traveled over the summer and I was in some airports in other countries that I'd never been to, and I was trying to get to my gate, and everything seemed to be pointing me towards this one direction. I was looking at a map on my phone, I was looking around at signs, and I got to the doorway, and it was the only way in this direction that I could find, and the whole door just said no entry, very large. Like, you've got to be kidding me. It was like airport style no entry, like you could be shot if you go this way type of thing. Like, well, good. Thanks for everything leading me in this direction. And then I found a very nice German flight attendant who very politely and very kindly led me to where I needed to go, which was totally in the other way. But
When I
anyway,
was freelancing, I was interviewing for a job that I ultimately was like, this sounds horrible, but they wanted for Carnival Cruise Lines for me not to take any cruises, but for me to get dropped off at each port and navigate my way onto the boat and then write up reports and then leave. Like just do that in like 4 different
so like the
ports in the
worst part,
Caribbean.
yeah.
Yeah. Just like see if the signage like in
Oh,
person do a usability audit of the signage and then like go into a room on the cruise ship, write up my report, and then like get off the boat before
get
it
off the
left.
boat.
And I was like, this
Interesting.
sounds really miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot for a little.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
interesting.
completely unrelated to Toussaint, but, like, man, that was probably one of the worst jobs I've I was like, "I don't think this is worth the money you wanna pay me." Like
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is like, that is a video game idea in and of itself. You
it
could see like audit these,
audit the
audit the,
signage for Carnival
audit,
Cruise Lines.
yeah,
The game.
the game, yeah,
A new short bus for hope. Um, no, no. Um, the back to Jasad. Is there anything
yeah. I
else you wanna
guess
spotlight in
just
this game, besides the weird objective mechanic?
yeah.
I liked my little friend.
I did. I hate to end on, or to sort of wrap the story on the game on such a negative note, because even though I had some of my personal struggles on it, and the way the game was trying to help me was only hurting me, like ultimately I really did enjoy this game. And I just, there was something, once I once I got it, once I figured out like what is this game, what is the vibe? What does this game want you to feel while you're playing it? Like, I really did find it pretty like meditative and interesting. I really like uh Journey, and it made me think of Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Do you remember that
Mhm.
game from forever ago? We still make fun of the
Getting a
title.
re-release this year, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's another game that's very tactile. You're controlling the two brothers, one with each
Mhm.
joystick, and like I really liked that. Um, I do wonder if I'm getting a little tired of the like, you're dropped into a world that is unlike our own, and we're not, and you're, it's going to be only environmental storytelling,
Mhm.
and it's going to be only like a silent protagonist that just like moves from biome to biome. It's like everyone's been chasing that high of Journey, and this introduces something really, really unique with the rock climbing, and I'm interested to see if like more games, or if they do like a second one and really expands on the climbing mechanic, because I really did enjoy it. But I did find myself a couple times being like, what are we doing here? What am I what is
What
all
else
of
is
that?
going on? I mean,
What
I think
Yeah.
at its best, the game it's suited to, like, maybe, like, a 2-hour play period time. Again, if you're good at this game, apparently you can finish it in that time.
Apparently,
Not
yeah,
me.
people are beating it in a
Um,
couple hours.
but, I think it's suited to, like, getting that rhythm, really feeling connected to the wall as you're moving,
Mhm.
like, taking in the view for a little bit, but not too much so you can keep going. Like, it's
Yeah.
the the chill factor is what
Mhm.
this one is for, and I think the story is a is just a bonus, it's not the basis to me.
Right.
I'm really glad I was told that in advance, because had you told me it's a Don't Nod game and I just opened it, I would have assumed I was gonna be getting a story and might have
Yeah,
been
like, well,
disappointed.
I'm gonna have some teenage angst, aren't I?
Yes, you are. But, uh it's that kinda, like, no thoughts, just moving your body thing you do when you're, like,
Mhm.
actually like, I don't often enjoy exercise, but when I do, it's because of something like that, where I've gotten into the rhythm and I've gotten into the
Mhm.
flow, and it feels
It's that
great
flow
just to move
state.
your body,
Yeah.
and this is as close as you can get with a video game as I think you can. Like, that physical stuff, like, you can get into that meditative state, you can kind of forget a lot of everything but the movement.
Yeah.
Um
And I love swinging in video games. I've said this a million times, and there's some real good
Oh,
swinging in this game.
you don't swing till, like, a little bit in, but then it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, there's a lot of great swinging, and swinging and grabbing and swinging
Swinging in that
again.
cave, man.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. And I did like the mechanic of like when you're basically rappelling horizontally across a wall. It felt
Yeah.
really smooth, where you'd sort of get your sort of pendulum going, and you get as high as you can. And at the peak of your pendulum, you place another. Uh, I keep saying piton. Is that right?
Yeah,
Piton.
yeah.
Yeah.
You hit
You
X.
place it. Yeah, you hit X, and then it places another one, and that starts anew, and you can pendulum, and you only have three of them. So if it's a if it's a long distance you're trying to get across, you really have to like nail the apex um of your pendulum and your piton and everything is really great. And that actually reminds me of another thing I liked about this game. You cannot fall to your death in this game.
I was about to say, we have not talked about how forgiving this game is.
Yes. There is no fail state.
There's
Um,
no Reagan being like, "I'm dead in a Highland hill."
oh my god.
I was
Yeah.
like, I don't understand how he died so much, but, like, this game does
Well, I
not
would
have
have
that.
died a million times in this game.
You do make a weird body crunch noise
you do.
occasionally when you fall.
Yeah, there's a number of times where like, well, I am paralyzed from that,
But you're not.
but you're not. And it's cool because a lot of times you're placing they have these little nodes, which I really thought were nice because it also indicates like here's the next sort of place to go. They have these little nodes where your character attaches their rope to it, and you start climbing from there. But if you just like walk off a ledge and fall, they just magically place a
They're
rope
like, "There's
attached
a
to
rope now."
yeah, it's just there now. And you might fall a pretty great distance, especially if you're in an area that you have been traversing all the way up. But I never fell in a way that completely undid a lot of my progress. And I think that they designed it that way because that would
Yeah.
be
My first
really
lighthouse,
frustrating.
I fell in a ways that lost maybe like I'd gone a long way and then I would fall. And
Mm,
that was just the game telling me like, "Hey, you need to place more of these."
yeah,
There's like a strategy to the piton. What this would be the wrong word we both just agreed on
I'm pretty
using the whole
sure we're
time.
right. It's okay.
Um, but you can put them in at any point when you don't need one,
Hmm.
just because it's you fall to the last point you
Yeah,
have. So if you've been going a really long way, you get to have this nice like, oh, do I put one down? But I've only got 3, and so if I need 3 later,
right. And but you
right?
can pull them out if you're at it. So like
Yeah.
it's very forgiving, really. Like it's all about just like figuring out which way you need to go and what to do. It's outside of some of that stuff I was talking about with like um really nailing like the apex of your pendulum and whatnot. For the most part, these challenges are figuring out what to do, not can I do it, you know?
Mhm.
It's not usually particularly challenging. And then if you do fail, you're not falling at all. And if you are, you just hold right bumper and shoot yourself right back up your rappel rope. So I appreciated that. Like there's so much of the game that they want you, I think, to enjoy the climbing and engage with it, but I don't think they want you to like ideally ever be frustrated by it.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated by some non-climbing elements of this game, but the climbing kind of always felt pretty good.
Slight spoiler, so jump ahead 30 seconds if you need to. I was excited that the stonework and the detail got more rich as you climbed higher.
Yeah.
I think that was a really lovely reward. And spoiler for people who want no spoilers on what you're seeing. It's the lightest one, but
Yeah.
some people want to be pure, but I did really enjoy that development.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you've made it this far into the episode and this still sounds interesting to you, I think you should give it a shot. It's on Game Pass, so if you're a subscriber to that, you just have it now, which is cool. But I think it's like 14.99 USD on the store. So I think it's worth it. I definitely think like this to me, it's 24.99, a little more pricey, but there's a lot in this game, a
Yeah.
lot of design and thoughtfulness, and I think that it's worth that cost.
Yeah. I did my
I'll probably just
periodic
go get
re-up
Game
Game
Pass.
Pass for a month when we cover one of the
Yeah.
games, so I'm at 11 for this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really though, that it like if you
Yeah.
have access to a thing that can do Game Pass, you know, would just do that for a month. It's cheaper, but
Yeah. I
if
think I
not,
even said I played on the PlayStation, which was just wrong. I played it on the Xbox.
you
I
did
just
say that.
interchanged the consoles.
Wow. Remember, we are deadly accurate on this show,
We are deadly
Laura.
accurate, and we
So
are definitely up for sponsorships where we will get the name of
yeah,
the console wrong.
yeah,
They're literally side by side. I just turned one on, and I use the
nice.
same controller for everything.
Mm. Wait, you
Mhm.
use what controller are you using?
I've used I do have Xbox controllers, but I've been using just like a third party
Oh,
controller.
okay. Cool.
just because it's a little bit um, easier to go back and forth between
Yeah.
different consoles on my computer. Mostly because I don't play PlayStation very often, and when I
Yeah.
do, I'm completely thrown by the buttons.
Yeah.
So, like, that's been my exchange.
Interesting. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Um, well, cool. Yeah, I think that's everything for this game. Again, I think like this is a good example of the type of games that we cover on this show. If this was a 20-hour game, like you would get tired of the climbing,
You
but
would definitely get tired of the climbing.
but with the length and the attention to detail and the folk and just like the overall quality of it, I think it's absolutely worth your time and check it out. It makes me want to rock climb, and I've never really wanted to rock
Uh,
climb. Yeah, any last thoughts, Laura?
Again, this is not the last time I'll mention the Olympics, but you can watch rock climbing soon.
Nice. Yeah, you're a big Olympics fan,
I
right?
am.
Yeah.
I get very into every sport
Yeah.
for a little bit. I don't know. There's something about like sports that aren't normally.
Hmm.
Um, so I am not a sports person by nature because I don't have the time for a long term story that I haven't been part of for decades.
Mm,
And the thing about
yeah.
the Olympics is they assume nobody has ever paid attention to this sport or any of the people before. So even if you're watching like uh the BBC version of it, like if you're not watching NBC coverage, every single country is going to be like, this is what the sport is. These are the interesting stories of these people, and here are the dynamics to watch for. Go. And so like there's a primer
Mm,
before every sport.
yeah.
So you're like, "Oh yeah, South Korea, so good at archery." Like you suddenly have like,
Of course I know this.
of course I've known this.
Yeah.
Like the only sport I follow in the off season for Summer Olympics is women's gymnastics, and the only one I follow in the off season for winter is men's figure skating. But every Olympics, I'm suddenly like, okay, tell me about curling, everybody. Like,
Yeah.
tell me about all these sports I don't normally pay attention to. And I think it's a joy because I find a lot of sports mystifying because they assume I've been following a saga
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
opening the book on page 750.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. That's a really cool way to frame it. I enjoy the Olympics, but I've like rarely engaged with it. Like I was all in with everyone on all the Michael Phelps stuff, however
Mhm.
long ago that was. I'll get in once something breaks through, and I am more of a sports fan than you, but generally, or rather, I follow a particular sport
I follow so
year over
many
year.
things. I just
Yeah,
can't like
yeah,
I am a little I know that if someone was like my friends have been like, "You should get into hockey with me." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like so much
yeah,
work."
yeah,
Like, I love you, but I'm trying
yeah.
to learn all about screwball comedies, the 1930s and 40s, and I just can't do both.
Got trivia next week. Yeah, I recently have been getting into soccer. St. Louis has a major league soccer team now, and it went really, really well, and it was a ton of fun getting into it. But it is like impossibly dense to get into football because like
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm getting into the MLS. I understand the American Major League Soccer thing, but everything is just trying to be like the leagues in Europe, and it's
Yeah.
like it's it's unfathomable to me. I'm trying to get into it because I'm enjoying it with the MLS, but it's like yeah, like a century of like near warlike relationships between people for soccer/football. So
I mean, it really is like trying to watch like any of the Bravo Real Housewives series. If you've
yeah,
not watched any of them before, you just like don't
yeah.
understand. Like you watch a random
Or
episode and you're like, "What's happening?" Like that's how I feel with a lot of sports.
yeah, I decided to
I
get
mean, I
into
understand the
season
mechanics of the
30.
game. I just don't understand the storylines anyone's talking about.
Yeah. I decided to get into General Hospital right around season 32 or 33
Yeah.
or something like that.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start watching Survivor season 39. Like, what are you doing? You can. Like, more
Yeah.
power to you, but, like, I'm not I'm not incentivized to be in the soup for so long, and the Olympics is my chance to be a sports person because they all come with primers.
Yeah, I like that. I watched some curling last Winter Olympics because I love the athletes that make it to the Olympics in curling. That is
I want
that
just someone to put like a camera behind the curling champions walking around the Olympic Village where everyone else is just this like
a
paragon of athletics.
Yeah, a single curling champion has consumed more beer in one like week than the rest of the Olympic champions in the last like decade.
Perfect.
It's wonderful. It's a fun one. Yeah.
I feel like we've already been doing the What's Making Us Happy segment for 20 minutes, even though it's just
so too. What's making us happy is the Olympics, I guess.
Well, so, it will in the future.
It will, yeah. Yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap the episode at this point. So again, I think full recommendation for Jusant. Check it out. Let us know if you check it out and if you like it. If you like the show and want to support it, we are listener supported on Patreon, patreon.com/The Short Game. Patrons of any level get access to our private Discord server. It's where we are talking about the games that we're playing. It's where we do a lot of our planning. It's a really cool community, and we're like, I love the Discord and the group that we have there. And if you're interested in joining, we would love to have you. It's patreon.com/The Short Game. You can find links to all of our socials and whatnot at shortgame.fm. Laura, if people want to find you online, where can they go?
You can find me, Laura J. Nash, at bird.rudio or on Blue Sky, Laura J. Nash.
Awesome. And you can find me on all the social medias at NateSTL. And I think that's going to do it for this episode of The Short Game. And so thanks again for everyone who listened, and we'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.